Woo! Here we are with another Flavor of the Month deck profile. That's right. So today we are taking a look at my Rakdos Lord of the Riots deck. So basically, you can't cast Rakdos unless an opponent has lost life this turn. Flying, trample, and creature spells cost 1 less to cast for each 1 life lost this turn. So, pretty straightforward, creature-heavy deck with a commander like that. So I'll get these off to the side, find my place, and yeah, that's good enough there. So we'll start with the creatures. Basically, what you want to do is you have a couple cards like this, like your Lobber Crew, Defender 0/4, but the key here, tap, Lobber Crew deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then it untaps for something, but that's the main keyframe you're looking for. So you tap it, if you have 3 opponents, that's 3 damage right there, and then there's a couple, essentially the same card, but different flavor with Unruly Catapult, Brimstone, Trench, whatever, Thermo Alchemist, Lightning Rig Crew, and Needle Drone. So all of these essentially, what is it, 6 of them here, they all tap, deal 1 damage. So this is what, for the most part, will get your Rakdos out of the command zone, because again, if nothing has lost life that turn, you can't even play your commander. So those cards are pretty key to the deck. Then we have these guys here. These are haste and trampler enablers. So of course, classic anger goes to the graveyard. You control a mountain. You get haste, enduring courage, +2/+0, and creature gains haste when it enters the battlefield. Plus, if this thing dies, comes back as an enchantment. So it's a nice card to have when you're trying to play these creatures big, fast, and smack for a lot of damage. So that's where these guys come in. Archetype of aggression. Creatures give trample. Creature opponent lose trample and can't gain trample. That's just a nice bonus. Gives our creatures trample. And Blood Crusher. Also, other creatures we control have trample. So, 2 creatures that give trample and 2 creatures that give haste are in here. Next up, show off Scrawling Crawler. This has been a pretty common card. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card. When an opponent draws a card, they lose a life. So your upkeep, this guy can get you an extra card and 3 damage off the bat by doing nothing. So that's a good inclusion there. Then we need something to keep our hand size going, which is this 7-drop Sphinx for 4/4. Seems like a lot, but if you're doing a lot of damage, when it enters the battlefield, you choose an opponent. If that player has more cards in hand than you do, you draw the difference. You just choose the guy with the most cards in hand, and you replenish your hand that way. We have Roaring Blades here, 7/4. It basically gets indestructible, and then you can remove counters to deal 7 damage to each up to 3 targets. You can remove the counters, 7 damage to all your opponents. That's 21 damage. You can play anything for free at that point for the most part. We have Blood Fist of Keld. Whenever another creature you control dies, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, Blood Fist deals 1 damage to each opponent. So again, there's a couple different pingers in here. Stonecoiled Serpent's an X spell. It enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. If you do the 21 damage, it enters with 21 +1/+1 counters. Also from your attacks, like you can drop down a pretty beefy card for nothing out of this. Battle Thopter, same thing. You can play it for basically. There's a lot of artifacts in here you can play for free. Battle Thopter's 1. Cityscape Leveler, when you cast a spell and you attack, destroys up to 1 non-land permanent. Its controller creates a tapped Power Stone, so destruction on a body that you can play pretty cheap. Lightning Serpent, haste, gets plus X +0 until end of turn, but you sacrifice it at the end. So it's a quick get in, hit, and go card. Desolation Twin, 10/10, but you get 2 of them, basically. Gev, Scorch Man, ward is 2 life. Other creatures you control enter with an additional +1/+1 counter on them for each opponent who lost life this turn. If you have 3 opponents, you can get 3 +1/+1 counters on your creature. and we don't really play Lizard spell, so the second part doesn't matter as much. Cool little just Darksteel Colossus, 11/11 indestructible. They get shuffled away, but you can swing it anything that you want. Dragon here, when it attacks, deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage up to 2 other targets. So, swinging in the air for 7, and it's fire breathing other people's stuff for 7. Sky Scraper, costs 1 less to catch for each modified creature. Doesn't really matter. It's an 8/8 trample, hexproof as long as it's untapped. So that's really not going anywhere. Another card that I really like in this deck is the Dreadsire. It has Vigilance with Ward of sacking things, but you tap it and you create a 10/10 creature. So, you have it on the board, tap it, create a 10/10 either at the end of your last opponent's turn, or if you're trying to do some trample haste shenanigans right away, you can do it then. So, there's just a lot you can do with something like that. Gecko gets you a little extra mana with discarding a card to draw a card. Tor the Younger, reach in lifelink, so you get some life back. Another source would deal non-combat permanent damage to a player. It deals that +1. So if you have this guy out and you have your catapults and stuff, they're pinging for 2 instead of pinging for just 1. And when you cast an instance or sorcery spell, this deals a damage to a target. 2 damage to a target. Solemn Simulacrum gets you some ramp. When it dies, you get to draw a card. Butcher. Haste, when it deals combat damage to a player or a planeswalker, it gets a counter. When it dies, it deals that much damage to something. Cryptborn Horror gets +X+1/+1 counters on it for the life lost this turn for opponents as a 3-drop. Pretty good if you're dealing a lot of damage to people. Links, players can't gain life, damage can't be prevented. When it enters, deals damage for non-basic lands. So, it does hit you, but you have 3 opponents. Again, this is all you're just trying to deal maximum damage. Prince of the Undeath, Flying Trample. When he enters the battlefield, you choose one. Each other creature gets -X/-X. Returned up to X target creature cards with total value mana X or less from your graveyard. They gain haste. So just it's a recursion on a body. Neheb is a really good card with afflict 3 whenever this creature becomes blocked. Defending player loses 3 life. So damage that way. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, add red mana for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. Speaks for itself on why it's in the deck. Twin Flame Tyrant. Any damage it's a damage doubler in red. Rakdos the Muscle. A little bit of flavor to go with the Rakdos Lord of Riots. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, exile top cards equal to its mana value from the top of that target player's library. Until your next step, you may play those cards in mana of any type can be spent to cast a spell. Second other creature, Rakdos becomes indestructible and tapped, so you can keep them alive if you need to. Runescar Demon, tutor on a body. Basically, you get a 6/6 flyer for most of the time. 2. Pretty much all the time that I've played Runescar, that's what's happened. Hosier Exani, non-combat damage becomes 4 for the most part, unless it's entering with counters and all that other good stuff. But for the most part, it changes your pingers from 1 to 4. Volgavoth, because it really fits in here, the textured foil that I pulled on this channel. Flying lifelink, ward, sack, 3 no-land permanents. If a card you control will be put into your opponent's graveyard, exile it, and then you can play the things from exile with life. It's mean. It belongs in here. Speaking of another mean card, Blightsteel Colossus, like Trample Infect Indestructible for 12, which, again, you can play for pretty much nothing. So, brutal card in itself, and Ulamog the Defiler, player exiles half their library. Ulamog gets all those counters, then when it attacks, it has Annihilator for the number of counters on it. So, those are the creatures, which, again, if you get this out fast, you can do a heavy amount of damage to people. But, now we're on to some instant and sorceries. Crushing Disappointment, each player loses 2 life and you get 2 cards. Pretty simple, life lost there. Lightning Bolt, smack someone for 3 for 1. Siege Smash with split seconds, you can cast this at any time. You can destroy an artifact or give a creature trample. I thought that was pretty good, so I put it in here just for that. Lightning Strike, just a less effective Lightning Bolt. Demonic Council. Search your library for a demon card, reveal it, put in your hand, and then shuffle, so you can essentially tutor for your runes card demon, or if you have all 4 card types in your graveyard, you can tutor for anything. So that's why it's in here. Slagstorm. Slagstorm deals 3 damage to each creature or to each player. So 3 drop that can reduce your creatures to 9. 9 less. Faithless Looting, draw cards and discard cards. Easy to just find what you need. Ranky's Prank. Each player discards 2 cards. Each player loses 4 life for each player sacrifices 2 creatures. Most of the time, even though you are taking 4 life, it's 12 cost reduction. So that gets your Blightsteel for free. Bolt Wave. Better Lightning Bolt, where everybody takes 3 for 1. And Dreadbore, just to have a little removal. Destroy creature or planeswalker. So have to have some removal. You're attacking a lot, so could be a little bit more removal, but you're hoping that the damage you deal through creatures is enough to get you through that. So now we are on to artifacts. Starting off with the Vidalcan Ori. You may cast spells as though they had flash, so if you are somehow dealing enough damage on other players' turns through tapping maneuvers of your pingers or something else, you can play spells, or if someone got hit really hard, this lets you play other things when people aren't expecting it, if you're drawing cards or so on and so forth. Sinister Monolith. At the beginning of combat on your turn, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life, so life lost there. Pay 2 life, sacrifice the Monolith, draw 2 cards. Helpful. Another monument, Bontu's, the really good one. Black creature spells cost 1 less, so you get a reduction. Whenever you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. You're playing a lot of creature spells. You're gaining your life back and you're draining for 3, basically. 1, 1, and 1. Good card. Umbulus. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player pays 2 life. If they don't, you return they return a permanent they control to his owner's hand. So either they're going to pay life and help reduce your costs, or they're going to slow themselves down and bounce something back. Arcane Signet for ramp. Thought Vessel for ramp and no hand size. Soul Ring for ramp. Candler of Endless Water for ramp and no hand size. And another fun one is the Hammer of Purphoros, which gives creatures haste. So another way to get your creatures swinging and attacking fast. That's the main gist of the hammer. Haste enablers, because you gotta hit hard and you gotta hit fast. Alrighty. So for the final thing before we talk about the mana base is the enchantments. So we have Rakdos joins up, more flavor for a Rakdos deck, even though I think I only have a couple Rakdoses in here. When Rakdos joins up, enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters on it. Whenever a legendary creature you control dies, Rakdos deals damage equal to that creature's power to target opponent. So bring something back and hit somebody hard. Phyrexian Arena. Keep your hand full. Beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and lose a life. Demonic Ruckus. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 menace and trample. And when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. And you can plot it for 1. So it gets a little cheaper. Mechanized Warfare. If a red or artifact source you control would deal damage to an opponent, or permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +1. So you have a lot of artifacts, you have a lot of red spells, and you're increasing what you do by 1, basically. You're all about dealing damage fast, reducing your costs, and getting creatures on the field, so you need things that will do that. And another nice little flavor, Underworld Dreams. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Underworld Dreams deals 1 damage to him or her. It's pretty nasty. I love the art from the M10. Kind of why it's in here, because this is a little college reminder for me. But if you combo it with Scrawling Crawler, then that's 6 damage off the bat. So yeah, I mean, there's a theme here, and that's kind of the theme. Lose life, play big things fast. Now the mana base, we have it's pretty standard for black-red. Blood Crypt, so Shockland, Haunted Ridge, and there's Battlefield unless you control 2 or more other lands. Temple lets you scry, and it looks really nice, and there's some Daleks in there. Pathway to Flip, depending on what you need. Canyon Sloth, enters the battlefield tap, but you can cycle it for 2. Bloodstained Mire, you can go fetch your Shockland. Cliffs, it enters tap, but you gain a life. luxury suite. It's a commander deck. When you're playing commander, ideally you would have more than 2 opponents, so this enters untapped and gets you your 2 colors. Blazemire Verge, just because the Verges are actually very, very good in my opinion, so tap for swamp, add red if you control a swamp or mountain, so when you play another land, essentially, you can tap it for both. And then we're into just the basic lands, so we have some mountains here to round it out, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 mountains. Notice they're all foil and the artwork is all different. That is a pet peeve of mine. If I like the deck and I know I'm going to keep it, which I am with Rakdos, you'll see the basic lands are all foiled out. Actually, the whole mana base is foiled out in this one. So we have that. Then that leaves same thing for the swamps. Arts are all different. And yeah, that's pretty much what we got here. For the most part, I think. Yep, those are different arts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 swamps. So, that's my Rakdos Lord of Riots deck. It can be mean on I guess, the bracket scale. It doesn't really have any game changers, but it does have some tutors. I'd probably put it at like a 2, maybe a 3. It's not CEDH, it's not overly crazy, but you'll get smacked in the mouth pretty hard and pretty fast, because that's what the deck's supposed to do. Hit you hard, hit you fast, and leave you stunned for when it becomes your turn and it happens again. So, there you go. You made it to the end of the video. Leave a comment. What do you think? Would you run this yourself? What changes would you make? Because decks are always improving, but this is just what I put together, brewing, and yeah. So, Rakdos Lord of Riots. That's it. That's all I got. I'm going to put it away right now. So, I guess this is the cue that I'm going to say once I get it into the deck, and I'm going to show off a cool little feel card sleeve, because Pokemon card and the Magic deck. Bye!